Hey hooligans, today we are talking about something a little bit different than usual. We are talking about Hollywood actors. Now, if I ask you to name an A-list movie star, you would probably give me examples like Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, etc. They've been in the industry forever, but they all had to start somewhere. So that got me thinking, of the actors still early in their career, who amongst them will be a part of the new generation of A-listers? To do this, I want to set some clear parameters for what constitutes a potential A-list movie star in the future. My first requirement is that they must be under 30 to count as Gen Z / part of the new generation. I know technically Gen Z cuts off at 1997, which makes the oldest Gen Z 27, but I'm just gonna round up to make things a little bit neater. This also makes sense in my head because there is a clear generational divide between someone like Timothee Chalamet, who is 28, versus, let's say, Daniel Radcliffe, who's 35, or Jennifer Lawrence, who is 34. Like, Timmy just gives off Gen Z vibes, while, you know, Jennifer Lawrence is clearly a millennial. Unfortunately, though, this means some of the popular rising stars are not going to be making my list today. So some examples of this would be Austin Butler, who is 33, Glenn Powell, who is 35, Joseph Quinn, who is 30, Saoirse Ronan, who is 30, Charles Melton, who's 33, Barry Keoghan, who is 31. I do think these actors are all going to make a big splash in the near future, but for the sake of today's conversation, I will not be including them. So my second requirement is that they must have been in a movie in their lifetime with at least a major supporting role, if not lead role. So this omits some other popular actors like Michael Cimino from Love, Victor, Maitreyi Ramakrishnan from Never Have I Ever, Aidan Gallagher from Umbrella Academy. They're all great actors, but they haven't been in a major movie with a major role. And my third requirement is that they must have also been in the public consciousness / a notable project in the past 4 years. This includes being in a popular TV show and movie, or has been in a project nominated for awards and has been in serious talks for an award. So this requirement lets me see how they are received by the public and if they are being talked about in recent years. To put it simply, are they relevant to people and are they still working? So some examples of people that would be omitted because of this requirement include people like Elle Fanning, who is 26, but she hasn't been in a major mainstream project since Maleficent, which was in 2019. Another example is Sophie Turner, who is 28 and has not been in a major project since Dark Phoenix and Game of Thrones, which was also in 2019. And another example is Saoirse Ronan, who is 30, but even if she was below 30, she hasn't been in a major movie since Little Women, which was in 2019. Of course, this doesn't mean that these people are bad actors or are irrelevant. They get talked a lot about on social media still, but I'm really trying to narrow down on the people that are constantly working and constantly talked about. So something else I'll be considering, but not a requirement to be on this list, is how much money they bring in at the box office and if they have potential for awards. And as you will see down the line, the actors at the top of this list definitely fulfill both categories, while the actors towards the bottom of the list don't necessarily have that prowess just yet. Now let's go over my categories for this list. So at the top of my list are the A-listers for sure. They have already made their mark on the industry, solidifying themselves as A-listers in the industry at a very young age. Below that are cusps. They are right on the verge of being on an A-list level. They're maybe just one notable project away from being considered in that category. Under that is let them cook. These people have a lot of potential. You just gotta let them simmer for a little bit because there's so much potential there that I can definitely see them shooting up in the next few years. Below that is a spark. These people have either been in 1 or 2 major projects, but they haven't been talked about as much as some of the other people. You might not immediately think about them, but they are certainly recognized. And then finally below that are the wild cards. I would say these actors definitely have the potential of rising to fame or completely falling off. It really comes down to the projects that they are able to choose and just how well they are received by the public. All right, let's get into our very first actor. You all know him. He is the obviously iconic Spider-Man. It is Tom Holland. He is 28. He has 65 million followers on Instagram. Now, this is something I will be bringing up about each actor. The number of followers doesn't necessarily impact where they will be on this list, but it does show a little bit of evidence of how they are perceived by the public and their popularity, etc. So of course, Tom Holland really doesn't need other projects at this point because he's just so well known for Spider-Man. It is just one of Marvel's most successful superheroes. I mean, he has tried a couple of other projects like Uncharted, The Devil All the Time, Cherry, and he started on The Impossible, which I actually really liked that movie, and he's lended his voice work on Onward, which was a Pixar project. Now, none of these other projects were like super successful at the box office, but hey, again, he doesn't need it. He honestly has a similar track record as, like, let's say Robert Downey Jr., who is so well known as Iron Man, yet Robert Downey Jr. doesn't really have too many projects outside of that are very well known, like Dr. Dolittle. So yeah, Tom Holland is definitely an A-lister for sure. Next up is Millie Bobby Brown. She is 20 years old. She has 64 million followers on Instagram. You obviously know her as Eleven from Stranger Things. At this point, it is also an iconic role. Everyone can recognize her. But outside of that, she didn't have too many well-known projects. In terms of movies, she was the star of Enola Holmes. She was the star of Damsel, and she was in a couple of Godzilla movies. So she definitely has been in movies. But right now, even though she has been in several movies, people don't necessarily recognize her for her movie star quality. So I would say she's right on the cusp because she has such an iconic character under her belt, but she needs a couple of more notable movies actually released in theaters. Okay, next up is Rachel Zegler. She is 23 years old. She has 2 million followers on Instagram. You know, a lot of people don't necessarily like her just because of how she has come off on press tours and interviews, but you have to admit that keeps her name in people's mouths. All press is good press, right? She is also undoubtedly extremely talented, and for how young she is, she has been in some huge movies. She was in West Side Story, she was in The Hunger Games recently, she was in Shazam, and for upcoming movies, she's going to be Snow White, so that's a huge Disney boost. And in terms of smaller A24 indie movies, she's going to be in Y2K. So she has a lot of prospects and a lot of big movies under her belt already. I would say compared to maybe Millie Bobby Brown and Tom Holland, she doesn't have anything that is very iconic just yet. Maybe Snow White will push her up there, but for now I'm going to put her under Let 'Em Cook. Okay, next up is truly a very Gen Z pick. It is Milo Manheim. He is 23 years old. He has 3 million followers on Instagram. He is kind of known for the zombies movies on Disney, but also recently he was in Journey to Bethlehem, which he was a lead actor, and he was also in a horror movie called Thanksgiving. So if he plays his cards right, I definitely see big things for him in the near future, but right now it's a little too early to tell, so I think I'm gonna put him under wild card. Okay, next up is Halle Bailey, who is 24 and she has 9 million followers, and she is most known as Ariel from The Little Mermaid live action, and she was recently in The Color Purple. And of course, some of you might know her from her music career with her sister. I think similar to Rachel Zegler, this role as a Disney princess is a big boost in someone's career. But so far under her belt are 2 musicals, so we'll have to see if she can expand outside of that. But I think undoubtedly right now there is a spark. Okay, next up is Jacob Elordi, who is 27 with 14 million followers. He got his start in The Kissing Booth, which was wildly popular on Netflix, and then he became even more popular when he starred as Nate Jacobs on Euphoria. And then in terms of movies, he starred as Elvis in Priscilla, and then he was in Saltburn, which also became wildly popular when it reached Amazon Prime. So overall, he's been in some really popular movies and TV shows. shows. People call him the it boy or the white boy of the month all the time. He's always talked about. I think there's a lot of potential there. Even though he doesn't have an iconic character, I think anything he's in has just been talked about a lot, and I would say that's a lot of evidence to be a superstar. So I'm gonna put him under cusp. I think there's a huge chance he'll be one of the A-listers soon. Next up is Anya Taylor-Joy, who is 28 with 12 million followers. She was on Netflix's Queen's Gambit, which was hugely successful. That launched her name a lot out there. But she also starred in a bunch of smaller movies like The Witch, Last Night in Soho, The Northman. She was on Split, which was pretty popular. And recently she was cast to be in Dune. She also is the voice of Princess Peach in Super Mario Bros. And most recently, she was one of the lead actors in Mad Max Furiosa, but that didn't do very well box office wise. So I think that is a major thing holding her back right now is the box office draw. So I can't necessarily put her under A-list for sure yet, but because of her absolutely stacked list of projects, I think she belongs in the cusp category for sure. Next up is Alex Wolff, who is 26 with 300,000 followers. I think he got his start mostly in the artsy horror side. Of course, he was in Hereditary. He was also in Old. He was recently in Pig and A Quiet Place. And also he made appearances in Jumanji and Oppenheimer. So some big projects and also some smaller artsy projects. I feel like no one really remembers him, but he's always appearing in these movies every year. And I think he really is just waiting for his big break, something he can lead in. But for now, I'm gonna put him under There's a Spark category. Next up is Florence Pugh, who is 28 with 9 million followers. I actually really like her as an actress. One of my friends despises her because of her crying face, but regardless of that, she has been in some major projects. So I first knew about her from Midsommar, which was that Ari Aster horror film, but now she's getting a lot of work in Marvel because she's playing Yelena from Black Widow, and now she's going to be in Thunderbolts next. She was also, of course, in Oppenheimer, and she's going to be having a bigger role in the Dune franchise. And then in terms of smaller movies, she was in Little Women and Don't Worry Darling. Definitely a big mix of smaller and bigger projects. I think one thing holding her back, just like Anya Taylor-Joy, is the box office draw and potential award chances. But I think it would be safe to put her under the cusp category. Okay, next up is Christopher Briney, who is 26 with 3 million followers. Now, this guy, I honestly had no idea who he was. I recognized him from Mean Girls, which was a pretty popular movie that came out recently, but my friend was telling me that I have to put him on this list because he became hugely popular after The Summer I Turned Pretty, which I guess went viral, and he was like the it boy for a while. Considering that I haven't really heard about him outside of Mean Girls, maybe makes him a little bit niche, but I'm gonna trust my friend on the fact that he was the it boy for a while. So in terms of my listing, I'm gonna put him under wildcard because he could take advantage of that, or it could just completely fizzle away. Okay, next up on our list is Jenna Ortega, who is 21 and has 38 million followers. Now, I think Jenna Ortega is one of the most interesting actors on my list. So she got her start in Disney in Stuck in the Middle, but then after that, she really became a scream queen. And by that, I mean she's just been in a ton of these like gothic horror genre types of things. So she starred in You on Netflix, and then she got her big break on Wednesday, obviously playing Wednesday herself. Now, Wednesday was a huge hit for Netflix, and interestingly enough, I think Jenna Ortega might be the only breakout star from that show. And then in terms of movies, she's been in a ton of horror movies like the Scream franchise or the Scream reboot, X, Babysitter Killer Queen, Miller's Girl, and coming out very soon is Beetlejuice 2, which might be the project she needs to have her big break in terms of the movie business. So I think Jenna Ortega has truly made her mark on the industry already. I think the only thing that's like kind of holding her back is that she is so pigeonholed in this gothic genre. So I think if she is able to choose a project next that shows her versatility, I think that will really put her on the A-list for sure. But right now, I think it's safe to say that she is on the cusp. Next up is Maya Hawke, who is 26 with 9 million followers. One of the most well-known Nepo babies, of course, the daughter of Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. She got her start in Stranger Things, where everyone instantly fell in love with her character. In terms of movies, she was recently in Do Revenge and Asteroid City, and then she lent her voice in Inside Out 2 as Anxiety. And there's actually a lot of award potential there for her voice work because she just did such a good job there. So she has a lot of momentum right now in her career. So I think big things are coming to her. So I'm gonna put her under the spark category. Our next actor is Tom Blyth, who is 29 with 1 million followers. And his most notable role recently was playing Snow from The Hunger Games, which was very, very successful. He was the white boy of the month for quite a while, based purely on the success from The Hunger Games, much like how it launched Rachel Zegler even further. I think that gives him a huge spark in the industry. Okay, next up is a big player. It is Zendaya, who is currently 27. And check this out, she has 183 million followers on Instagram. That is insane. She got her start over on Disney, where she was in Shake It Up and Casey Undercover, but then she really blew up when Euphoria came around. Man, the Euphoria cast just has some huge names, yet Euphoria itself is just not able to capitalize on the show. And then in terms of movies, we all know that Zendaya was in Spider-Man, she was in The Greatest Showman, she was in Dune, and these have all been very successful. The problem is that she wasn't the lead on those movies, so she kind of fixed that problem by starring in Challengers, which was successful, but it was definitely on the smaller artsy side of things, which is good, honestly, because it gives her a lot of award potential as well. I mean, there's really no arguing here. Zendaya is one of the biggest names in Hollywood, period. So she is certified A-list for sure. So next up is Edebiri, who is 28 with 1 million followers. I think she is most well known on the wildly popular The Bear. But in terms of movies, she actually was in Bottoms, which is a hilarious movie. She also lent her voice work on Inside Out 2 and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, and she starred in Theater Camp. People also love her on social media, calling her the people's princess. She's just having a lot of momentum in her career right now, and a lot of people are talking about her. I think it's safe to say she has a spark. Our next actor is Finn Wolfhard. He is 21 with 22 million followers, which is pretty insane. He, of course, is known for Stranger Things, and then he appeared in the It movies and Ghostbusters. So yes, that means he has been in notable movies, but people haven't really been talking about those movies all that much, especially about his role. So I would say there's definitely potential there, but not as much as the other people on this list right now. So I would consider him on the wild card side. And speaking of wild cards, this next actor is certainly an unconventional pick, but Walker Scobell is 15 with 2 million followers already. And he is playing Percy Jackson in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians show, which is wildly popular amongst people, even though strangely enough, we were kind of worried if it was even going to get a season 2. And interestingly enough, he did have a pretty big supporting role in a movie in The Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds. So at his young age, he already had a pretty significant supporting role in a movie, as well as a lead role as an iconic character. So I think there's a lot of potential here, more than some other actors in the industry right now. But obviously he is really young and is too early to say how far he will be able to take that. Let's hope he makes some interesting choices for projects in the future. So for now, I'm going to put him under wildcard. Our next actress is the beautiful Sydney Sweeney. She is 26 with 22 million followers. She is also another alumnus of Euphoria, and she also starred in the second season of The White Lotus, which is another very, very popular show. And then in terms of movies, she starred in Madam Web, which was, we don't really talk about that, but she was on Anyone But You, which did hugely successful numbers at the box office. And then she also produced her own movie, Immaculate, which was this horror movie. It did okay, but for her to be able to make that happen is pretty impressive. I'm considering putting her on cusp, but I don't think she has just quite enough under her resume just yet, but her box office numbers are looking very, very good. So I think it is fair to put her under Let 'Em Cook. Okay, next up is Paul Mescal. He is 28. He doesn't have an Instagram from what I could find, but he's a very interesting pick because I didn't really hear about him until recently, when there's a lot of chatter about his name for awards. And so then I checked out some of his movies, including After Sun and All of Us Strangers, which made me sob, like ugly cry. They were really, really good movies. I think it proves that he's a fantastic actor and he should definitely get some awards for his work. So I definitely think he's like an independent art house darling. People love him for that. But the huge news is that he's going to be starring in Gladiator 2 as one of the leads, so that's very, very major for his career. Also, not to mention, TikTok is absolutely obsessed with him. He is yet another white boy of the month. Especially, I remember when he had those little shorts and people were talking about it for weeks. So I think for now, I'm gonna put him under Let 'Em Cook, but maybe when Gladiator 2 comes out, we'll see how well that does. Maybe that will actually put him a tier above that. Okay, we're coming up on our final three. Our next actress is Hunter Schafer. She is 25 with 7 million followers. She is yet another alumnus from Euphoria. In terms of movies, she was in The Hunger Games, which again is very successful. She also played the lead role in Cuckoo that just came out, and she was also on Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness. But no one really talked about that movie for some reason. Again, there's a lot of momentum in her career right now with recent movies coming out. She's doing lots of interviews. People are talking about her. I think she just needs like an iconic character. People want her to play the live action Zelda, which would be so iconic. I think that would be great. So I think she's missing that. But other than that, I think it is fair to put her under the Let 'Em Cook category. Okay, our second to last actor. This one is also an unconventional choice to include, but it is Justice Smith, who is 29 with 400,000 followers. So it's interesting because he doesn't have too many followers and too many people talking about him. But then I remember what movies he has been in, and I realized just how many big movies he was in. I first knew about him from Detective Pikachu, which obviously was hugely successful, although it's probably having to do with Pokemon itself. He was also in Jurassic World. He was also in D&D Honor Among Thieves. And then in terms of smaller art house movies, he was in I Saw the TV Glow, which got a lot of good reviews from critics. And people were calling it like one of the best horror movies of the year, which I watched it. I did not like it, but that's kind of besides the point. I think he's definitely an interesting pick to be on this list because he has a good amount of things on his resume, but the problem is people are just not really talking about him. So I'm gonna put him under the wild card category because I think he needs to do something to get his name out there more. And last but certainly not least is Timothee Chalamet, who is currently 28 with 20 million followers. I'm actually surprised by that. I thought he would have more followers. He got his start in the independent movie side, including Call Me By Your Name, Little Women, Bones and All, Beautiful Boy, The King, Lady Bird. I mean, there are just so many movies he has been in that were smaller, but there was a lot of awards talk for him as well. But then once he moved past those smaller films, he started starring in things like Dune and Wonka, which made tons of money. So not only does he have a huge presence in terms of awards, he also is bringing in a lot of money at the box office. I think that is the exact quality you want from a Hollywood movie star. And not to mention, he is constantly working. People are constantly talking about him. He's not only the white boy of the month, he is the white boy 365 days. And he's coming out with his next project, which is the Bob Dylan biopic. So I think undoubtedly that makes him an A-list for sure. So now to reorganize and reorder some of these people, I think Timmy is going to be at the top of the A-list for sure, followed by Zendaya, then followed by Tom, only because Tom's projects outside of Spider-Man have like kind of flopped. I think in cusp, I'm going to move Jenna Ortega to the front. Then I think I'll move Jacob Elordi next. And then I think I'm gonna move Millie Bobby Brown to the last category just because she doesn't have too much momentum going on in terms of movies. And then I'm gonna put Florence Pugh as third because she has that Marvel connection. And then under Let 'Em Cook, I'm gonna switch Rachel Zegler and Sydney Sweeney. And yeah, I think this looks good. And then under the spark category, I'm gonna put Maya Hawke as number 1 because I think she just has the most momentum going on right now. And then I'll put edebiri behind Halle Bailey. Yeah, I think this looks fine. And then under wild card, I'm gonna put Wolfhard as first just because he has been in the most blockbusters so far. And then the rest of this list looks fine. I'll keep Justice Smith as the last one, even behind Walker Scobell, because he has had a bunch of movies already. I just don't know why people are not talking about him at all. I think that's his biggest problem. Okay, well, that is my list of the next generation of A-list movie stars. What do you guys think about that? I undoubtedly have some actors that I have not included. I know there's some Bridgerton people that are wildly popular. Let me know, who am I missing? Who would you add on this list? And of this list, would there be any rankings that you would change? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Hey hooligans, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed that, then make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment below, and check out some of these other videos available right now.